In the year 3078, Earth had changed. The sky was no longer blue, and the cities were surrounded by giant junkyards. Massive fields filled with broken machines, old spaceships, and alien trash. Earth had become the galaxy's dumping ground. Max lived in Junk Zone 47, one of the largest scrap fields in the northern zone. He was only 19, skinny but smart, and worked as a scavenger. Every day, Max searched the metal mountains for anything valuable, old parts, batteries, tools. He sold them in the black market to survive. One evening, the sky above the junkyard turned red. A strange light flickered in the clouds. Max looked up and saw something falling fast. It wasn't a meteor. It was a capsule, metallic, round, and glowing blue. Boom! The ground shook as the capsule crashed into the far corner of the junkyard. Max's heart raced. "That's not normal trash," he whispered to himself. Grabbing his scanner and flashlight, he ran toward the crash site. The air smelled like burned metal. Sparks flew from broken wires as he climbed over piles of scrap. When he reached the crash site, he stopped. His eyes widened. The capsule was half buried in the ground, steaming. It was about the size of a small car, with strange alien symbols glowing faintly on its surface. It looked old, damaged, but not dead. He slowly walked closer. The scanner beeped fast. "Life form detected," it said. Max froze. "Wait. What?" He placed his hand on the side of the capsule. Felt warm. There was a small window on one side, covered in dust and cracks. Max wiped it with his sleeve and looked inside. Deep inside a massive alien spaceship. There was a girl. The cage was made around his age. You could not see inside it unless you looked very closely. Her hair white like snow. Behind that glass sat a girl, torn at the shoulder, quiet, and she wasn't moving, and broken. But suddenly, she had no her fingers twitched. She had no clothes. Her eyes opened. She had glowing soft purple. Her skin was pale. Max jumped back. Her eyes were empty. The girl didn't move again. Her hair was messy. She was alive. She looked like a shadow of a human. He knew he couldn't leave her there. No one talked to her. Others would find her. No one called her by a name. And they wouldn't be kind. On the cage, using his toolkit, there was only one thing written. Max forced the capsule door open. Human subject number 16. The seal broke with a hiss. Every day, cold bright lights came on. The girl and the aliens walked into the rising quickly. Their skin was blue and rough. Slowly turned toward their eyes cold like glass. They never find me. They only came to test her. Soft, sometimes they touched her with long metal tools. Max didn't understand. Sometimes they shocked her body with electricity. Why was she in a capsule? She never screamed. And who were they? She never cried. He lifted her carefully. How? She was light, did not exist in that place. As he carried her back to his workshop, weeks, he looked around nervously. She didn't know. The junkyard was quiet. No one told her anything. But something in the air had changed. They only gave her enough food to stay alive. He reached his small shelter, a thick, gray liquid under a broken cargo ship. He placed the girl on a treated her like an animal, checked her condition. But she was not an animal. But her body glowed faintly in the dark. Suddenly, inside her mind, he heard a beep from his scanner. She still remembered what incoming signals detected, but that memory was fading. Cargo, like smoke in the wind. One day, something changed. Signal locked. A new alien entered the room. Heart sank. He was not someone was looking for her. He didn't look at her like she was an object and sat beside the capsule. He noticed the small metal tag on the side. His name was Rock. Discarded unit. He was younger than the others and quieter. Experimental. He watched her for a long time through the glass. Max whispered. She didn't move. They threw her away. He pressed a button. Like garbage. The cage became clear. But she didn't look dangerous. He stepped closer. She looked for the first time and fragile. She saw an alien face without fear. Sirens began to echo in the distance. He didn't hurt her. Max stood up. He just alarmed. And red lights flashed. Something strange happened. Search ships. A tear rolled down her cheek. They're here already. Just one tear. He whispered. Rock They're blinked. Looking for her. He had never seen a human cry. In her sleep. None of the other test subjects showed emotion. The lights around her body glowed brighter. Always empty. Max stared in shock as his metal tools on the table began to float. Turned off the camera just slightly. He knew she's others not normal. Were watching. Max something inside him said, "But she's not a mistake right. Either." He took a step forward and whispered something in his own language. The alien girl began to whisper again, but the sound was soft. A single word. Her eyes moved. Max took a deep breath, very slowly. He had a choice to make. She looked at him. Run and save himself, just a little, or protect the strange girl from a world that had already thrown her away. Please. He looked at her one more time. I don't know who you are. No human in that lab had spoken for years. But I think you deserve a second chance. But this one, as he locked the workshop doors and powered down all signals to the glass. Max knew this was just the beginning. He asked. Something big had landed in Junk Zone 47. She said again, a little louder. And the universe was already on its dry leaves. Don't hurt me. That night, Rock didn't sleep. He sat in his room, staring at his screen. The girl's file was on it. No name, no age, just her code. Human subject number 16. Captured from Earth 2 years ago. No history, no background. A blank file. But she had spoken. She had cried. Something was still alive inside her. Something human. And Rock could not stop thinking about it. Back in the cage, the girl sat in the same place. But something had changed inside her. She had spoken. She had looked into someone's eyes. She had remembered what fear felt like. And what hope tasted like. Tiny, like a candle in the dark. But it was still there. She held her knees to her chest and whispered again. Please. No one answered. But this time she believed someone might. Far above, the spaceship flew silently through space. Planets passed by like glowing marbles. Stars blinked in the black sky. Inside, hundreds of humans were still locked in cages. Cold, quiet, forgotten. But in one cage, a girl had spoken. And someone had listened. Rock had seen many humans in cages before. He was a junior xenobiologist, born on a planet where humans were just test animals. To him, humans were weak, broken things. Everyone said they were dangerous once, long ago. But now, they were slaves, samples, tools for science. But this girl, this one was different. Her eyes had met his. Her voice, even if broken, had asked for something no test subject ever asked for: mercy. Rock couldn't sleep that night. He sat in his dimly lit room, far from the lab. Screens around him glowed with test data, heart rate charts, brain scans. But he didn't look at any of it. His mind was full of that voice, that word. Please. He replayed the video again. The girl, pale skin, thin arms, as like ash, and then a tear. He had read about human tears before. Some said it was a sign of weakness. Others believed it meant something more, that humans could feel pain not just in their body, but in their soul. Rock leaned forward and whispered to himself, "Why are you still human, when they tried to take everything?" The next morning, he went back to the lab. The senior scientists were already busy, planning a new experiment for subject number 16. Pain response, memory wipe, neural mapping, words spoken coldly, like they were talking about a machine, not a girl. Rock felt sick. He looked at the girl through the glass. She was awake, sitting, staring at nothing. But her lips moved. Silently, she mouthed a word. Again. Please. Rock made a decision. That night, when the lab was empty, Rock returned. He shut down the cameras and disabled the security sensors for just 10 minutes. He had studied the system for weeks. No one would notice if he was fast. He walked to her cage. This time, she looked straight at him. Her eyes were clearer than before. She remembered him. He brought a small metal cup with him, warm liquid inside. Drink, he said gently. The girl didn't move. It's not poison, he said. It's just food. Real food. Still, she didn't trust him. So he took a sip first, then offered it again. Her hand shook as she reached out. For a moment, their fingers touched. Warmth. Human warmth. She drank. The taste made her cry. It was soft and sweet. Something like honey and bread. She hadn't tasted real food in. She didn't even remember. Why? She whispered. Rock paused. He didn't know how to answer. He finally said, because I think you remember who you were. And I want to remember who I am. Later, Rock sat in the control room, alone, watching the stars. His species believed humans were animals. But he had seen something else. Her voice, her tears, her eyes. That wasn't weakness. That was strength. She still had hope, even after everything. He remembered something his grandmother once told him as a child. To hurt the weak is easy. To protect them makes you strong. The next day, something strange happened. Subject number 16, the girl, sat differently. Straighter. Eyes alert. Not broken. The other aliens didn't notice. But Rock did. She was changing. She began to move more. Stretch her arms. Breathe slower. Not like a robot. Like a human. When the others left, Rock returned. He brought a small cloth. He passed it to her through the feed door. She looked confused. For you, he said. It's to cover yourself. She held it in her hands. It was soft. Blue. Not much, but enough to feel human again. She wrapped it around herself like it was armor. Do you have a name? Rock asked. She looked down. She tried to speak, but her voice broke. I don't remember. It's okay, Rock said. Maybe you will. She gave a tiny nod. For the first time in years, the girl slept peacefully. Rock watched her through the glass. He had broken 10 rules by now. If the others found out, he'd be punished. Maybe worse. But he didn't care. Because he saw something in her he had never seen before. Like, she was not just another test subject. She was someone. Maybe the last real human. Far away, deep in the belly of the ship, other humans still sat in cages. Silent. Lost. But something had changed. Hope was a virus. And it had found a new host. Subject #16 was no longer just a number. She was becoming something else. Someone dangerous. The night outside was silent. Too silent. Jake sat near the control panel, eyes on the radar. The green dot blinked slowly. Something was moving near the ship. Again. He leaned forward, frowning. Whatever it is, it's not going away. Nexa stood behind him, watching the screen. Snow wraiths don't give up. They wait. They learn. Then they strike. Lyra sat close to the heater, her arms wrapped around her knees. It wants us scared. That's how they feed. Fear is their weapon. Jake stood and grabbed his coat. Then it's time we show it we're not afraid. He stepped outside with Nexa, blaster in hand. The wind had dropped, but the air was bitter cold. Snow crunched under their boots as they moved toward the hill behind the ship. Suddenly, Nexa grabbed his arm. There, she whispered. Look. A shape moved between the trees. Large, fast, almost silent. Jake aimed his blaster, but it was gone before he could fire. They climbed the hill carefully. Jake set up 3 motion traps, small devices that would flash and beep if anything passed by. They returned to the ship. That night, no one slept. Beep. At 3 a.m., one of the traps triggered. Jake ran to the monitor. Flashing red. Trap 3, he said. It's here. He ran outside with Nexa. This time, Lyra stayed behind to watch from the window. The trap was blinking in the snow. But nothing was nearby. The snow was undisturbed, no tracks, no blood. It passed by without touching the ground, Nexa whispered. It's floating. Jake felt a cold chill run down his back. Suddenly, they heard a loud, unnatural screech. It echoed across the valley, high-pitched, angry, alien. They turned and saw something, tall, pale, thin as bones. Its body shimmered, almost invisible, but the glowing eyes were clear, bright blue and hateful. Jake fired. Nexa followed. The creature dodged fast, moving like smoke. One blast hit its leg. It screamed again and vanished into the snowstorm. Jake breathed hard. What the hell is that thing? Nexa answered. It's not just a hunter. It's intelligent. It knows we're watching. Back inside, Lyra helped clean a small scratch on Jake's arm. You're lucky. That thing kills in seconds. Jake looked at both sisters. We can't just wait. We need a plan. Nexa nodded. It bleeds. That means it can die. But we must find its lair before it brings others. Others? Jake said. Yes. Wraiths don't stay alone forever. Jake sat down. Then we don't have much time. The next day they began their search. Lyra stayed to watch the ship, while Jake and Nexa followed the trail of green blood in the snow. It led deep into a forest of black trees, where the light barely reached. They walked carefully. No birds. No wind. Just silence. Jake suddenly stopped. Ahead, in the snow, was a pile of bones. Clean. Picked dry. Not human. Nexa bent down. It's old, but not ancient. Wraiths feed here. Then they saw something else. A cave half hidden by fallen trees. The blood trail led inside. Jake checked his blaster. Nexa pulled out a glowing orb from her belt. What's that? Jake asked. Flash pulse. It shocks shadow creatures. Jake smiled. You're full of surprises. They stepped into the cave. Inside, it was cold and damp. The walls were covered in strange symbols, glowing softly like frost. Then they heard it. Breathing. Slow. Wet. From the shadows, something moved. It rushed at them. Jake fired. Bright red blasts lit up the cave. The creature screamed. Nexa threw the flash pulse. A bright light exploded, and the wraith dropped, twisting in pain. Jake ran forward and shot again. This time, the blast hit its chest. The creature roared and melted into thick mist, gone. Silence returned. They looked around. Nexa pointed. There. A nest. In the corner of the cave were 3 eggs. Glowing, cold, and cracked. Jake's eyes narrowed. It was protecting something. We need to destroy it, Nexa said. They placed explosives around the nest and ran out. A moment later, boom. Fire shot into the sky, and snow fell from nearby trees. Back at the ship, Lyra watched them return. Relief filled her eyes. Jake walked in, shaking snow from his coat. One less problem. Nexa looked serious. But it won't be the last. This planet is not empty. Something bigger is coming. Jake sat down. What do you mean? Lyra spoke softly. We didn't tell you everything. When we escaped, we didn't just run from a marriage. We stole something. Jake looked at her. What did you take? Both sisters were silent. Then Nexa said, a royal key to control a war fleet. Jake stared at them. And outside, in the snowy sky, a strange light appeared in the clouds. A ship, large, silent, watching. Jake stood frozen at the ship's window. Above the snowy valley, a dark shape hovered behind the clouds. A ship, huge, silent. Its lights blinked like cold stars. He turned to the sisters. That ship, is it yours? Lyra lowered her eyes. Yes. Nexa stayed quiet, but her jaw tightened. Her hand rested on the blaster at her side. Jake's voice was sharp. You told me you were running from a marriage, but now I find out you stole a royal key to control a war fleet. Nexa finally spoke. That ship is searching for us, or rather for what we took. The key. Jake stepped back. You brought them here. You put all of us in danger. No, Lyra said. We had no choice. You always have a choice, Jake replied coldly. The sisters didn't speak. Outside, snowflakes floated down slowly, but the air felt heavy, like a storm was about to begin again. Jake sat down, staring at the blinking ship above the clouds. So what now? He asked. They land, and we fight them off with one blaster and a few traps? Lyra knelt beside him. We know them. We know how they think. That gives us a chance. Nexa nodded. You helped us. Now we help you. Jake looked at both of them. Why should I trust you? Lyra placed her hand over his. Because we trusted you first. When we were dying. There was silence for a moment. Then Jake stood. All right, let's prepare. Later that day, the ship in the sky did not move. It just hovered, watching, waiting. Inside Jake's ship, they made a plan. Nexa opened a metal box and pulled out a small device, smooth, glowing with soft blue light. This is the royal key, she said. It connects to our family's fleet. With it, one person can control 10,000 ships. Jake whistled. No wonder they're chasing you. But the key only responds to one voice at a time, Lyra added. We took it to stop a war. Our father wanted to use it to conquer a peaceful colony. Jake looked between them. So you're rebels? Not rebels, Nexa said. Protectors. Jake nodded slowly. Then let's protect what matters. That night, Jake stood outside, looking at the stars. The sky was clear now. No clouds. Just the large alien ship, floating like a dark moon. He heard footsteps behind him. Lyra. She stood beside him in silence for a moment. When we were children, she said, we used to look at the stars from our tower. I always dreamed of flying away, of choosing my own path. Jake looked at her. You did that. Yes, she whispered. But it came with a price. She turned to him. You could still walk away. You don't have to fight with us. Jake smiled, but it was tired. If I walk away, I'll always wonder if you made it. And I don't want to live with that. Their eyes met. For a moment, the cold didn't matter. Then Nexa's voice called from inside. They're landing. Moments later, the alien ship touched the ground half a mile from Jake's camp. Snow blew up in all directions. 3 figures exited. Tall, wearing black armor, eyes glowing like fire. Royal enforcers. Jake, Lyra, and Nexa watched from behind the rocks. One of the figures shouted, voice loud through a speaker. Return the key. Return the traitors. Or be destroyed. Jake whispered, we need to stall them. Nexa nodded. I'll draw their fire. Lyra, get the key inside their ship's command panel. Jake stopped her. Wait, you're going alone? I trained for this, Nexa said. Let me finish what we started. Jake looked at her. She didn't blink. Lyra grabbed Jake's hand. If we don't return, thank you. Before he could answer, Nexa ran forward, firing blasts to draw attention. The enforcers chased her behind the rocks. Lyra and Jake dashed in the other direction, toward the enemy ship. They reached the command hatch. Lyra placed the key into a glowing panel. The ship's systems blinked. A soft voice spoke in her language. Access granted. Awaiting command. Jake looked at her. Now what? She turned. Now we take control. Suddenly, an explosion echoed from the hills. Nexa's signal went silent. Jake grabbed his comm. Nexa? Nexa, do you copy? No answer. Lyra's hands shook. She's gone. Jake placed his hand on her shoulder. No, not yet. She's too strong. But then, a shadow appeared on the screen. Inside the enemy ship, someone else had entered. An older man, tall with long silver armor. His face appeared on the comm screen. Lyra, he said calmly. Daughter, come home now, or your bondmate dies. The screen showed Jake, standing in the enemy ship's targeting system. He was marked for death. The stars moved slowly outside the window, endless, quiet, watching. Inside the small escape pod, Elia sat with her knees to her chest. Her bare feet rested on the cold metal floor. She was wrapped in the black coat Rock had given her, now stained with blood. Not her blood. His. Rock lay on a narrow bench beside her, unconscious. His skin was pale. A burn wound covered his side, where the laser had hit him. His breathing was weak, but steady. She hadn't spoken in hours. But her mind wouldn't stop. She had escaped the cage. But the cage was still inside her. The silence, the pain, the forgotten name, the years of being a number, a thing. Subject number 16. She touched her face, trying to feel something real. Her skin didn't feel like hers. Her hands shook. But then she looked at Rock. He had risked everything. He had chosen her. Not because she was strong. Not because she was powerful. But because she was human. And he believed that was enough. The ship's AI voice spoke gently. Oxygen level stable. Life support active. Destination: Outer Belt Refugee Zone. Estimated time: 2 days. 2 days. 2 days alone with the silence, the stars, and her thoughts. Elia moved carefully. Her muscles still weak, but stronger than before. She found the emergency medkit and returned to Rock's side. She cleaned the wound. Her hands remembered how, though she didn't know from where, maybe she had once been a nurse, or a soldier, or a sister. She whispered softly as she worked. Stay with me. You're the only one who ever saw me. Rock didn't wake, but his breathing slowed. Calm. She sat beside him. She didn't cry. Not this time. Hours passed. Elia stood and walked to the mirror panel. Her reflection stared back. Tired, thin, dirty. But there was something different now. Not just survival in her eyes. Something deeper. Self. She whispered her name again, testing it like a new word. Elia. Sounded strange, but also right. Elia, she repeated. That's who I am. Her hands gripped the metal table. I am not subject 16. She said it louder. I am not a number. She found a storage locker in the pod. A change of clothes, small food packs, and something unexpected. A notebook, old, half-burnt, and blank. She picked up the pen and stared at the paper. And then, for the first time in years, she wrote, "My name is Elia. I was in a cage. But I am free now. And I will not forget again." The letters were shaky, but they were hers. Rock stirred in his sleep. Elia rushed to his side. His eyes fluttered open. "Where are we?" he asked weakly. "Safe," she said. "The pod is taking us to the outer belt." He smiled. "You flew it." She nodded. "My hands remembered, even if I didn't." He chuckled, then winced in pain. "You have a name now," he said. "Elia," she whispered. "That's a strong name." She looked at him. "You gave me the chance to remember it." Rock closed his eyes. "No, you remembered it on your own. I just reminded you that you were never a thing." They stayed in silence for a while, just listening to the hum of the pod. Finally, Elia asked, "Why did you believe in me when no one else did?" Rock stared at the ceiling. "Because I saw myself in your eyes. I was trapped too, in a different kind of cage, the one made by lies. I thought I was a scientist, but I was a coward." Elia shook her head. "No, a coward doesn't open cages. A coward doesn't get shot for someone else." He smiled. "You're more human than any report ever said," he whispered. "They were wrong about you." She looked out the window. "No, they were right. About one thing." Rock raised an eyebrow. "What?" She stood up, fists clenched. "Humans are dangerous. Because we remember. Because we feel. Because we don't stay in cages forever." Far in the distance, a new star appeared, small and golden. The refugee zone. They were close. Elia stared at the light and felt something new in her chest. Not fear. Not sadness. Purpose. She turned to Rock. "When we land, I want to find others. Other survivors. Other humans." He nodded slowly. "And then we tell the truth," she said. "About what they did. About what we are. About hope." And for the first time in years, she felt like herself. Not a number. Not an experiment. Not a cage. Just a girl. A human. Named Elia. The escape pod landed without noise. It touched the dusty ground of an old mining moon, gray, cracked, and forgotten by most of the galaxy. Above, the sky was black and full of slow-moving stars. There was no sun here, only shadows. The pod's doors opened. Elia stepped out. Her boots touched real ground, not metal, not glass, but earth. Dead earth, maybe, but still it felt different. Free. Behind her, Rock leaned on her shoulder. Still hurt, still quiet, but alive. In front of them stood a tall human man in a patched jacket, holding a rusted rifle. His face was hard, his eyes sharp, but when he saw Elia, something changed. "You came from the inside?" he asked. Elia nodded. The man stared at her a long time, then said, "Follow me." They walked through cracked rock and narrow tunnels. Hidden under this cold moon was a human camp, old, secret, and full of stories. Dozens of people stared at Elia as she entered. Dirty faces, empty eyes, but also sparks of recognition. They had seen people like her before, some broken, some lost, but none with a look like hers. The man's name was Jackal, a former engineer. He had been hiding down here for 5 years, saving other escaped humans. The camp was made of scrap metal and old machines, but it was alive. Elia sat by a fire for the first time in years. She listened as people told stories. Stories of cages, of lost children, of planets burned, of families erased, but also stories of resistance, of messages passed in the dark, of humans who still remembered Earth. Elia didn't speak for a long time. Then she stood and said just one thing. "I remembered my name." The silence in the room broke. An old woman stepped forward and touched Elia's face. "You were one of the taken?" Elia nodded. "Do you remember your family?" "No," she said softly. "But I remember how it felt to be human. A younger boy stood. They locked us in cages too, he said. But we got out. We dug tunnels. Jackal looked at them all and then at Elia. These people are tired. They've survived. But they don't believe we can fight back. Elia looked around. You don't need weapons to fight, she said. You just need to remember who you are. Later, Rock lay resting in a small bedroom, breathing easier. Elia sat beside him. These people, she said. They're alive, but only just. Rock opened his eyes. They need a reason to rise. She nodded. I think I'm that reason. He smiled faintly. You are. Not because you escaped, but because you still feel. That's what they lost. You gave it back. That night, Elia asked for paper and wrote again in the same notebook she had brought from the escape pod. They broke our bones, but not our names. They took our past, but not our future. We remember, and that makes us dangerous. The next day, the humans gathered. Jackal brought out an old transmitter. It could send messages to nearby moons, weak but possible. Elia stepped up to it. She looked at the crowd, at the scars, the pain. Then she spoke into the mic. To any human still listening, we are not finished. We are not animals. We are not test subjects. We are not numbers. We are human. We have names. We have voices. And we are coming back. The message spread. Not fast. Not loud. But like a spark in dry grass. On other moons, in hidden holes, other humans heard her voice. And for the first time in years, they believed. Back in the tunnels, Jackal showed Elia something more. A hidden armory. Old weapons. Broken drones. Scraps of gear. Some of it still works, he said. She looked at it all. Slowly. I don't know how to lead an army, she said. Jackal shrugged. Good. Leaders who think they know everything are the worst kind. She smiled. I'm not trying to win a war. He raised an eyebrow. Then what are you trying to do? She looked down at her hands. I'm trying to wake them up. That night, Elia stood at the edge of the tunnel and looked up at the stars again. She didn't know where Earth was anymore. Maybe it was gone. Maybe not. But she knew this. The war wasn't over. It had just moved underground. And the fire in her chest, the one called memory, was now spreading to others. In the quiet places of the galaxy, the human voice was rising again. Not loud, but true. The sky above the mining moon was still dark. But something had changed. The humans below it were no longer hiding. They were planning. They were sharpening broken tools, rebuilding old weapons, teaching each other how to fight, how to run, how to survive together, not alone. In the middle of it all stood Elia. Not subject number 16. Not a number. Not a prisoner. Elia. She had no rank. No armor, no command badge. But when she spoke, people listened. Because she remembered. Because she had escaped. And because she had come back. Inside the camp, Rock was walking again. Slowly, still healing. He watched the humans train with scrap rifles and broken drones. They weren't soldiers. They were survivors. And yet, something about them felt dangerous. Not because of their weapons, but because of what they believed now. They believed in Elia. They believed they were still human. One night, Elia stood before the gathered group. Jackal, the boy with the tunnels, the old woman, the twins from Sector 9, all of them circled around her. She spoke slowly, softly, but her words were like fire. We were taken, beaten, locked in cages. They tried to erase us, but here we are, still breathing, still standing. We may not have ships or armies, but we have something stronger. We have memory, and we have each other. She paused. Tomorrow we go back, not to die, but to open every cage, not just for revenge, but so they remember this forever. Humans don't stay silent. The next day a storm came, not of weather but of motion. A plan born in whispers and tunnels now exploded into action. Hidden ships launched from the moon. Just 3. Rusted. Old. But enough. Their target. The alien research ship where Elia had once been caged. The one still full of humans. The one still full of numbers. As they approached, Elia sat beside Rock in the lead ship. She looked out at the stars. "This is where it started," she whispered. Rock nodded. "And this is where it ends." They landed in silence. Inside, the lab was still the same: white walls, glowing floors, quiet humming machines. The same cold light that once lit her cage. But this time, Elia was not inside the cage. She was walking straight through it, with fire in her chest, and 50 humans behind her. Alarms screamed. Guards rushed in. But they were not ready for what came. The humans didn't charge like soldiers. They moved like ghosts, through vents, through service tunnels, through weak points Rock had mapped. They shut off systems, broke glass cages. One by one, humans were freed. Some could barely walk. Some cried when they saw light for the first time. Some looked at Elia like she was a myth, a story come to life. She touched their shoulders, their hands. "You're not numbers," she said. "You're people." They repeated it, again and again, like a prayer. In the center of the ship, Elia faced the alien commander. Tall, cold, dressed in silver armor. A voice like ice. "You shouldn't be here," he said. "You were nothing." Elia stepped closer. "You made me nothing," she said. "You took my name, my memories, my body." She pulled off the black coat and stood tall. "But I took it all back." The commander raised his weapon. But he was too slow. Jackal shot first. The commander fell. Not dead, but defeated. The humans didn't cheer. They just kept moving. Room by room, cage by cage, until there were none left. Until the silence inside the ship felt clean, not empty. Later, Elia walked into her old cage. It was still there. The numbers. Subject number 16. She stood for a long moment, then picked up a piece of metal and carved across the glass. Her name was Elia. She broke the cage. The humans left the ship together, not as prisoners, not as cargo, but as a people. People who had remembered, who had survived, and who would never forget again. Far away, across the galaxy, a message was sent. Cages are falling. We are not gone. We are coming home. And in the hearts of every human who heard it, a fire began to burn. The fire called freedom.